Without this basic right, women can't be free. Abortion on demand and without apology.
We have been recognizing that there's a growing state of emergency confronting abortion rights.
There's still a culture that accepts providers being hunted, stalked, threatened, and killed, where science is discarded as just one opinion, and fanatic religious fundamentalism is upheld as an equally valid opinion.
And we notice that this has been an escalating situation for decades now, and especially the last 3 years. There have been record restrictions every single year for the last 3 years. So we planned this ride.
There's been enough generations of women who've had to fight for this right, who've had to see this. And with my generation, we've seen this crazy assault. We've seen the murder of doctors. We've seen the bombing of clinics. And then we've been denied real sex education, and we have heard nobody say the word abortion. That's ridiculous.
Abortion! Abortion!
Now it started in 1966, and we've been fighting on these issues ever since then, and we will keep fighting.
We are here today, 40 plus years later, still fighting, because the movements of the 60s and 70s did not go far enough. Revolution was not made, and we are now facing the backlash. And so today we see it in the manifestation of the war on drugs, mass incarceration, and the fight to control women's reproduction. I'm a part of the Revolution Club, which is carrying out the strategy of fight the power and transform the people for revolution.
In doing this, our aim was threefold. The first thing is that we actually have to get beyond fighting each new attack one by one on a local basis. These attacks happen in a local area, they're local flashpoints, but they're not local attacks, they're part of a national struggle.
Right here in North Dakota, a recent victory should be acknowledged, where the injunction was passed against a restriction that would shut down the Red River Clinic. And we also want to acknowledge Tammy Kromanacher, who's here today. Tammy, you are a hero.
The anti-abortion movement sits back and they pick which laws they want to introduce in which parts of the country, where they think they can go the furthest. They target the places that have only one abortion clinic in the state, especially viciously. And we need to connect people up in these local fights and launch a national counteroffensive. We have to build a national movement that takes this whole thing on, because what happens on a national scale is going to shape more what happens in any given place than what happens just there. The second thing we're doing is it's long past time that we got off the moral defensive.
The movement that won the Roe decision, and it was outpourings of people in the streets that really contributed to that happening in the first place, was uncompromising and unapologetic. They did not call abortion a tragic choice.
Abortion Rights Freedom Ride has heard from people across this country, and hundreds of people have signed onto a statement at StopPatriarchy.org for abortion on demand and without apology. And from someone in Texas, I had an abortion and I am thriving.
I am an undergrad student at the University of North Dakota. There's a clear difference between a fetus and a child, an acorn and a tree, pre-life and life.
That's right.
There's a lot of Christians who are motivated by their spiritual faith to seek justice, equality, and all kinds of positive things. But those people who want to enact a literalist interpretation of the Bible and of the Old Testament, with all of its punishment towards women, gay people, and other people, and its ignorance against science, these Christian fascists, I think, are appropriately called Christian fascists. It is long past time we stop letting them have the moral high ground.
The anti-abortion movement has never been about life. It has never been about protecting babies. Despite what this or that individual who relates or identifies with that movement believes about when life begins, the core and the essence and the objective effects of this movement has always been about controlling women. If you go and you ask any of these so-called pro-life organizations what they think about real sex education and what they think about birth control, you will find that they have ranks after ranks of lobbyists that are attacking those same rights and are attacking a scientific understanding of reality altogether on every front.
And they're pro-war.
They uphold the literal interpretation of the Bible that says that women should stay silent, and we won't stay silent. It says that the good old days, the fucking dark ages, were the best times of humanity, and we're here to say we won't go back to those days.
I learned this myself almost 20 years ago when I came to defend, the first time I ever defended an abortion clinic. It was here in Fargo in 1995. And we came out, and Operation Rescue was there, praying in front of the clinic, threatening the clinic, and they were down on their knees, and their prayer went like this: Lord, please break this curse of independence that has afflicted women. Because when you're forced to have a child before you're ready, when you're 17, 16, 22, whatever age, that's it for you. That your life is determined for you. A lot of people talk about when abortion is illegal, women die. That's true. Abortion still goes on, it's unsafe, and women die. That's very true, and people need to know that, and we need to tell those stories. Those stories need to come out of the dark. It's very important.
They have to choose between Lysol and bleach, between throwing themselves down a flight of stairs or immersing themselves in a scalding bath. They make a choice between a knitting needle or a wire coat hanger, and most of them die. And look, in this country, before Roe versus Wade, 8,000 women died every year because of this.
One of my good friends died. She bled to death in a parking lot of a grocery store because she could not, she went to Tijuana, she had an illegal abortion, and she was too afraid to go to the hospital because her parents would find out, and she died.
I had a great-great aunt who was pregnant at 16, and she got an illegal abortion before Roe v. Wade was passed. We can't let people today have to go through those same things that we have seen in the past. We can't let that happen again.
But that's not the whole of it. When abortion is illegal, women have their lives foreclosed by forced motherhood.
So many of my friends have been forced into motherhood, forced into stopping their lives to take on this child. They got no help from their family, and they couldn't afford an abortion, nor would they get one in fear of the harassment and shaming of doing so.
That's it for them. They drop out of school, they get trapped in abusive marriages, they get married into marriages that never should have happened, they get driven into poverty or deeper into poverty. Their whole lives are changed and shaped for them. And then every other girl growing up, young women and girls growing up, when they see that going on, it's not just that their dreams are extinguished, it's that their dreams don't even flourish to begin with. Because when you see every woman around you being treated that way, it's like trying to grow a plant underneath a rock. This is not moral. It is immoral. And it's time that we stop compromising with that. We are the ones who stand for women's lives, women's freedom, women's dignity, women controlling their own destiny, and we should stop apologizing. And we should not, thank you. It's true. People told us when we said abortion on demand without apology, people told us, look, that's very extreme. You might rub people the wrong way. What's true? Which women should apologize for their abortions?
None.
None.
Which women should not be able to get their abortions when they need them?
None. This is what we're here to do today, to destigmatize abortion, because it is an essential part of every woman's life to have control over her reproductive rights. My mother has had an abortion. My mother is a part of the 1 in 3, and I am proud of her for doing so.
That's right. We have to say it. And if other people don't feel that way yet, or they feel that's too extreme, or they feel that might be too out there, we have to struggle with them and change their mind.
There's too many ways that our society lets us hit the snooze button, or hits the snooze button for us. Sometimes, to wake someone up, I think it's time we dump a cold bucket of reality on some people.
Woo! That's right.
And that's part of, I think, what this abortion rights freedom ride is trying to do, to bring to this. This doesn't exist because we're talking about it. This exists because it's happened.
The third thing is that we need to rely on ourselves. It's important when the courts make the ruling like they just did here in North Dakota. But it's not going to stop this movement that is a juggernaut and has been unrelenting for decades.
We cannot allow any further restrictions on the right of choice.
My name is Gordy Gustafson. I am actually Prairie State's Regional Director for the National Organization for Women. I also serve as the State PAC Chair for Minnesota Now. We need as many people to stand up and say enough is enough, and we have to win this war on women.
Yes, there is a war on women. This fascist anti-abortion legislation, it enslaves women to our reproductive organs. But the war on women goes much further and much deeper than just that. Demonizing LGBT people who don't conform to traditional patriarchal gender and social norms. Globally, there's an epidemic of rape. Women are literally sold, tricked, coerced into actual sex slavery through international sex trafficking on a level never before seen in human history. Pornography has become increasingly violent, cruel, and degrading at the same time it's becoming more mainstream. And all of these fronts of the war on women, they're not separated out, they tie back into and reinforce one another. Now is certainly not the time to give up, to try and lay low, to rely on the Democrats, or to settle for anything less than the full liberation of women.
There is a party that was forged during this revolutionary time in the 60s that never gave up on revolution, and that created a strategy of how we could actually make a revolution in this country, because it is going to take a revolution and nothing less to end the horrors that the system creates and perpetuates. People who are serious about ending the horrific oppression of people here and all over the world need to get into this. And you can do so by digging into the work of the chairman of the Revolutionary Communist Party, Bob Avakian, who has worked tirelessly over the past 40+ years on developing this new synthesis of communism, and has developed a strategy of how we could make a revolution today, even in a country like this.
But we have to rally forward an uncompromising movement of thousands, tens of thousands, and soon millions that actually defeats this war on women and changes the way people think and feel. That's how history has changed in the past. It's the masses of people who make history. Get connected and spread this in your community, on Facebook, on Twitter, through the internet, and in other ways, so that we stay connected and there's a growing force that is a beginning of turning the tide and changing a national counteroffensive, uncompromising about women's lives and women's liberation, and relying on ourselves and building this movement that can change the course of history. So I'll end, as I did last night, with a quote from the call for the World Can't Wait movement, where it said, "History is full of examples where people who have right on their side fought against tremendous odds and were victorious. It is also full of examples where people passively hoped to wait it out, only to get swallowed up by a horror beyond what they ever imagined. The future is unwritten. Which one we get is up to us." Thank you.